Should any Huskies with eligibility remaining return to the team in 2024?
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another edition of the Locked On Huskies podcast. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hansen. We write for Inside the Huskies of Fan Nation and Sports Illustrated. You can check out all our written work over there at si.com/college/Washington. Thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. So Lars, as we still kind of continue to break down some of the fallout after Washington's 34-13 loss to Michigan in the national championship. One thing that you and I have talked a little bit about on this show is who should return for the 2024 season. And I feel like we're going to highlight just a few critical guys in this conversation. That's going to be Jalen McMillan, Roger Rosengarten, and Jabbar Muhammad. So let's just start, and we're just going to do, so let's go through all three really quickly, and we're going to go yes or no, should they stay for another year, and then we'll expand on each after the fact. So let's start with McMillan, yes or no?
No. I would love it personally, but no.
So I'm with you there. Roger Rosengarten.
After Monday night, no.
You think that he should come back, or that he should go?
No, that he should go because he got worked. And when I say worked, I mean worked by the officials in the national championship game. Get paid, young man. Go get paid in the NFL. So I agree with you on Jalen McMillan. I disagree with you on Roger Rosengarten. Jabbar Muhammad, yes or no? No.
Okay, let's start with Jalen McMillan, please.
So why no? Well, because here's the thing. Bringing in Travis Hunter, you have Denzel Washington.
Whoa, Travis Hunter.
Sorry, Jeremiah Hunter. No, good. No, good catch. I was like, when you said whoa, I was like, wait. I'm not breaking.
Which Hunter?
I'm like, wait, I'm not breaking news here. I'm like, oh wait, I said Travis Hunter. My bad. But yeah, Jordan Travis Hunter, Jeremiah Hunter, all the hunters out there. No, but no, Jeremiah Hunter, the cow receiver coming in. I think that, to me, had McMillan – I mean, if McMillan didn't get hurt, this isn't a discussion, right? But I think that also the fact that he had a touchdown in the last two games, and I believe – did he have one in the Pac-12 title game or no?
I don't believe he did, no.
Okay, but he had one in the Sugar Bowl, and he had one and the only one in the national championship.
Yeah.
When I talked to him before the team went down to New Orleans, he said – well, it's really kind of how I do in these next two games. I think he proved in these last two games he should go to the NFL, right? He's got the body to work. Because the discussion for coming back is not to win another national championship or to play for another national championship. It's to help the retooling process not be as rough, right? Because now you're going into Will Rogers versus Austin Mack that we'll discuss later. You're kind of reshuffling a lot of new faces into the program while still having some returners come back. But Carson Bruner, Cam Fab, there's a Parker Roseford, so there's some certain guys that for a fact are coming back. But you kind of look at the rest and think, you know what? When I came to Washington, we were like 8-5. We had just lost, coming off that last year in 20 with the Rose Bowl, or with the Peterson being done and all that stuff. I played through 21. I got screwed over in the first half of my career, and then I got absolutely redeemed in the second half. I think now, because if you're Jalen McMillan, what are you coming back for? To raise your draft stock? Okay. I don't know if there's anything he could do to make him a surefire first-round pick next year.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And the risk also, because again, if you get hurt again, almost think about Eddie, where Eddie came back and got hurt in the offseason, and then had to miss the first 5 or 6 games of last season. Right. So it was do you really want to risk that one more? Same thing with Dylan Johnson, right? There's a number of guys where you can say, hey, do you want to risk another injury to come back to play for
a pretty good team that can still be 9-3, 10-2?
But there's no it wasn't guaranteed, right? But I think with everyone coming back, you kind of knew, okay, as long as the wheels don't fall off, and as long as DeBoer is still at the helm, this team should be in the Final Four, or at least playing for, being in contention
for the 12-team playoff. Yeah.
Right. For a national championship, right? So, I'm talking about this year.
Oh yeah, okay.
Coming back for this past year. So, but now to the playoff being expanded, your odds increase. But I think if you would ask Jamarcus Shepard, I think he would rather run out the combination of Denzel Boston, Jeremy Bernard, and pick the next 2 or 3. Jeremiah Hunter, and then pick the next 2 or 3 guys.
Sure.
Kind of like, figure that out as you go. Because again, obviously Jalen does give you a solid one, and having him, Hunter, and Bernard plus Jackson or one of Jackson and Bolden, that's a great core. But then it's like, again, now you have, I don't know. To me, it just Jalen's done enough for his career. He had the 1,000-yard receiving season last year. He's certainly proven capable of being a consistent player. And he'll probably be a day 2, day 3 pick, depending on how the medical and everything goes like that. But he knows the routes. He knows how to get open. And I think with the right coaching in the NFL, he'll find success. So it's just a matter of, does he want to start that now or come back and what? I guess break the records that Rome just set. I don't know.
Sure.
But
so let's get to the other 2 guys really quickly here, because I agree with everything you said. Where it comes to Roger Rosengarten, I think he should come back for another year. And I think that if he comes back for 2024, he could be offensive tackle 1 off the board in the 2025 draft. So just real quickly here, Talisi Fuaga, Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, Jordan Morgan. Those are just guys really quickly. And that's, not mentioning guys like JC Latham. There are a whole bunch of other guys that could potentially go before Roger Rosengarten in the 2024 draft. I think Roger is a fantastically talented player. I think he's awesome. I think he's going to have a very long NFL career. But I think he takes, whatever NIL deal he can get to come back and be one of the faces of this team, flip over to left tackle to help Will Rogers or Austin Mack, and keep Drew as a party at right tackle. That shows up this offensive line for next season. That gives him tape on the left side. And he puts on another, let's say 5-10 pounds. And there's no reason that he's not a top 20 pick in the 2025 NFL draft with everything that he brings to the table as an offensive tackle.
No, I completely agree with everything you just said. I think the only reason why I would have him go was because now he's played 4 years of college. Again, these are the questions you're asking the players, right? Or not that we're asking, but these are the questions that the players are considering, right? I asked Roger, do you feel like you have to play left tackle to prove that you can play left tackle in the NFL? And he said no.
Sure.
Because I think when you go through the combine process and when you go through the evaluation process, and by the way, having 2 former NFL offensive linemen as your high school coaches didn't hurt, and now teams, those 2, Ben Hamilton and Tyler Columbus, can make calls on Rodgers' behalf if teams are like, hey, do you think this guy could play left tackle? We've only seen him at right tackle. We like his athleticism. We like his body. We like all that. But is he a right tackle or is he an offensive lineman? He's an offensive lineman. Yeah. So, yes, now, will he be one of the top 6 tackles taken? No, because of the guys you mentioned, right? But does Roger care more about being the first player taken or leaving on the right note? Now,
that's
again,
fair.
The right note could also be, hey, why not try and run it back with Will Rogers? What if Will Rogers leads you to 11-1 in the national championship with Roger Rosengarten as your left tackle? So that's where NIL comes into play. But the thing is with Roger, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy where, okay, if UW gets me 1.2, I'll come back, right? Yeah, he doesn't strike me as
it's nothing like that.
But he doesn't strike me as I need to get X number to make it worth it to come back. I don't think there is a number to make it worth it. I think it's just which one feels right. And to me, I don't even think Scott Huff would disagree that I'd rather have. That's why you bring in Drew as a party to be your right tackle, and then you've been grooming Jalen Clem to be your left tackle for the last year or so. So I think to me, and knowing the upside that Jalen Clem has, especially with his bloodline and his father and all that, it would almost be kind of a slap in the face to Jalen saying, hey, we brought you as a redshirt freshman transfer, giving you a year to sit and learn the offense and kind of bulk up so that in 24 you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Now in 24 you're going to be a backup again. That kind of stalls it out.
Right. No, your point is very valid there, and we're gonna talk about Jabbar Muhammad, but we're gonna take a quick break real fast first. And we're going to send a message to our good friends over at Game Time, because you shouldn't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the best things about Game Time, the last-minute deals, the flash deals, the zone deals. While I was down here in Houston, I just, I popped on the Game Time app, got a nice ticket, went across the street here to watch the Houston Rockets play. It was great. Played the Bucks. It was a fun game. Giannis went off for 40 and 15, and the Bucks still lost. So, I enjoyed all that. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So, about on the point of Jabbar Muhammad, before we move into the quarterback battle, I feel like he's another guy who he doesn't necessarily need another year from everything that he's shown on tape this year, but I don't know. I feel like there are going to be some questions, mainly around his size when it comes to just NFL teams, but the tape is there. So I don't think that that either way he would be making a good decision. Like if he stays, awesome. If he goes to the draft, awesome. A team's going to be getting a fantastic player in him. So my thing is, I don't know how much the NFL is going to knock him because he's not your prototypical 5'11", 6 foot kind of corner. And in that same vein, would he be, making a good decision and just stick around for a year? And I asked him after the game the other day, and he told me, yeah, I'm going to take a couple of days to make this decision because it's really hard. And I don't want to make an emotional decision, and I want to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind. I talk to all the people that I need to talk to before I do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, again, we both love Jabbar, but I don't think him coming back is not meaning he's going to gain 2 inches or 3 inches on his height. Like,
sure.
There's nothing that he, again, yes, you could come back, be an all-conference player, everything like that, but now you're going to the Big Ten, so the level of competition different. I don't know. I just think he was great for what they needed, and I don't know. I would be surprised if he came back just now. Again, I could see it from a depth perspective, right, where, hey, now you're having Elijah and Jabbar running back, so now you have those corners, but it's almost like, well, Elijah kind of learned how to be what it takes to be a cornerback 1 this year. Now he needs to step into that role next year and let Curly Reed, Leroy Bryant, Javion Green, all those other guys come in and kind of say, hey, now Thaddeus Dixon need to say, hey,
yeah,
we need to see if we can kind of level up as well, because I think this is about development too, right? You're bringing in guys. You developed Jabbar Muhammad. He was better than he was at Oregon or Oklahoma State, but now you need to also bring your freshmen along. So that's why I think he would be better suited, again, because what happens if he gets, I'm not saying this would happen, but I'm just saying what happens if he gets torched in the Big Ten next year? Like now,
you're right.
Now the draft stock that he was already fighting an uphill battle for now just goes all the way down. So
right.
I think to me, this is especially when it comes to, college kids and 18 to 22, you got to strike while the iron's hot. So I think to me, he would be better. The better decision is to go.
Right. Because you're saying his stock's not going to get higher than it is right now. That's a valid point. So let's move on. Let's talk about Will Rogers versus Austin Mack. I'm very curious about this because I think you and I both feel that Will Rogers has the edge to win the job right now, but we can't count out Austin Mack because he's such an impressive player, and of course he's going to want to compete for this job. There's no question about that he sees this and says, yeah, I enrolled early to learn under Michael Penix and then hopefully win the job in 2024. I don't think that he would hit the transfer portal if he didn't win the job because, he's still going to be 18 years old next year or this coming season. And as a redshirt freshman, he knows he still has, some developing to do, some learning to do. And Will Rogers would be somebody who can help him out with that. But at the same time, he offers so much upside that if he wins the job, it's not necessarily a bad thing for this program.
Right. And I think that the thing though with Will is it's like bringing him in on a straight up 1-year grad transfer, I believe. I mean, there's no way Will Rogers has more than 1 year of eligibility left.
No, you're right.
So I think it's a matter of, okay, does Will Rogers see himself having an NFL future? Because that's where you get into the question of, okay, Will Rogers wins the job, but Austin Mack is clearly your number 2, and he's able to get a decent amount of reps throughout maybe he plays in 7 or 8 games, right? In backup roles or in reserve role, or maybe 6, right?
Sure.
But he plays in reserve roles and gets enough game time as a redshirt freshman. Say, hey, now when Will does graduate, so he's guaranteed gone. This isn't a Michael Penix. Hey, by the way, I'm going to come back for 1 more year. We found 1 more year in the reserve tank that we're going to come back for. It's like, no, we don't. Will Rogers will be done after 24. But I think Austin would be best suited to, kind of just take and learn under that role, because it's not. And this would be different if Austin was 19, 20, right? Kind of didn't have to have that early year, because otherwise he's DeMarcius Davis right now. Meaning that he's enrolling in 23 versus in 22 or 24 and 23, whatever. You know what I'm saying. But the point is he'll be enrolling now instead of enrolling back when he did last year. So the point is, it's like, okay, you don't want to stack up the quarterback room too much, right? And you're not going to bring in another transfer. You might bring in a transfer of sort, right? Maybe like a backup community college guy just to have as an extra 4th quarterback on the roster. But I don't think you're going to do that to Austin after this coming season. After the 24 season, you're not going to bring in another transfer and say, hey, Austin, now that we think you're going to be the guy, we want to see if you can prove it again, right? But it does have a good balance where you have the left-handed quarterback in Penix. Now you have him learning under a right-hander in Will Rogers, 2 different kind of styles of quarterbacks, both great passers of the ball.
Who played in very different offenses too.
Exactly. And so if you're Austin, now you know 3 different offenses, or at least can understand 3 different concepts of offenses. So I think to me, that's imperative for Austin Mack, because he's got so much upside, but you don't want to throw those guys in the fire unless you really, really have to. And Kalen DeBoer is smart enough to know, hey, I could easily throw Austin Mack in there without even going to get Will Rogers, because we have Will Haskell. But I know to be a perennial winner, I need to have the best roster in the room. And that means adding a veteran quarterback a la Will Rogers, not Cam Ward, not, Dylan Gabriel, not, Tyler Van, not quarterbacks that were kind of like, okay, it seems like, I'm not sure about that one. Will Rogers, you know exactly what you're getting. And I think it's a perfect fit for the offense.
No, you're spot on there, because everything that Austin Mack is doing, like right now, what we've seen from him, it's all building towards the future. And the question when it comes to Austin is just, when is it going to arrive? And having Will Rogers there, like you just said, it bridges the gap to get to the Austin Mack era, however long it is. Even if it's 1 year, he comes in 2025 is fantastic and then leaves for the draft. Like there are a whole lot of different scenarios. I know that's, way down the line. There's a whole lot of things that are going to happen between now and then, but these are all things to consider. And it's just a matter of, when we talk about the 2024 season, it's kind of going to be, what's the floor of Will Rogers versus what is the ceiling of Austin Mack. And because I think that Will Rogers is going to have a really high ceiling in this offense, especially with the pass catchers he's going to have around him. But there's just this extra question, this extra layer of how much is Austin going to grow between right now and April? And how much is he going to continue to progress, learn the offense, and just get in sync? Because I think that that's something you're going to have to make sure of. Because if, let's say, he wins the job over Will Rogers, now in Rogers, you still have somebody who, let's say Austin struggles, he's still learning the ropes, throws a couple interceptions, something like that. Pulling him isn't going to kill his confidence. He's going to say it's something where you can say, all right, yeah, you're struggling right now, but you still have such a high ceiling. We're still very excited about what you can be. Watch what Will is doing, continue to learn, and we're not going to be afraid to give the ropes back over to you.
Exactly. And I think, and that's why Austin being so young kind of works out to where, and he's also, I know you talked to him when he was a recruit, but the family that he has around him and the support system that he has around him, they didn't enroll, or this isn't a Quinn Ewers situation where, hey, I'm enrolling early to go to Washington to get NIL, and then I'll transfer in a year or two if I'm not the starter, like Quinn Ewers, right? I'm not going to go transfer back to Stanford just because Washington didn't give me NIL money. It's like, no, well, you're not going to Stanford for NIL, but also B, if you're Washington, it's like, hey, this was the guy that we wanted to be the next guy. So we have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C to make his future work here. Now, we're not going to put him in a bad spot because, again, to your point, let's say Austin Mack starts as a redshirt freshman. They don't bring in Will Rogers, and he goes, let's say, 15 touchdowns and like 20 interceptions, and they go 6-6. Is that good? No, because I'm saying that is the floor of an Austin Mack for me as a redshirt freshman. Now, could he be a game manager? Could he be serviceable? Sure. But also when you look at the running back room, it's not like they're going to carry the offense, right? I mean, even if Dylan Johnson comes back,
we'll get into that.
Cam Davis is good, but I'm saying like in terms.
That's more of a transfer portal thing.
Right, exactly. But right, and so that's why it's like there's so many other things going on with that offense. I think you just want the veteran of Will Rogers to say, hey, you know what? Get one more year, get out of Mississippi, hang around with some seemingly Mississippi type people in the coaching staff, and then see if you can either make it in the NFL or, again. And this is another thing about Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer is now that when you claim these quarterbacks, but like you have these quarterbacks on your roster, you're building out your future tree.
Right. So Lars, let's jump into the transfer portal. You talk about running backs because I know that's one of the positions we want to highlight. Just what's that going to look like going forward? We've got to take a quick break real fast. And we're going to talk about our friends over at FanDuel because the NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. So you and I, we hit it a little bit about this on our Wednesday show, but we talked about that the transfer portal, there's still work that needs to be done. And I think that conversation, you mentioned running back, so I feel like we should start there just in terms of the flow of the conversation. And then we're going to move into defensive tackle because that's still what feels like the #1 veteran need on this team. But let's start at running back because Dylan Johnson, we'll see, but we both believe that he'll probably end up going to the NFL draft. And then we'll see what happens with, guys like Sam Adams, who could potentially transfer. I know he's almost out of eligibility. Daniel Ngata, who we haven't seen very much of. I'm not saying he's going to transfer, but we just haven't seen a lot of him. Yeah, you're getting Cameron Davis back, but then it's Will Nixon, Tybo Rogers, and there's room for another impact player at the position.
Yeah, and I mean, with Will Nixon's father, Jeff, now being Syracuse offensive coordinator, again, not saying these guys could enter the portal, but, Will Nixon didn't necessarily have the greatest second season at Washington after coming over from Nebraska in 22. And so, again, that was a position all year where behind behind Dylan Johnson, it was, hey, can anybody else emerge? And Ryan Grubb's like, still waiting for it. Gets to the national championship, still waiting for it. And so to me, I wonder what kind of changes just in general are going to happen there, right? Because yes, you have Cam Davis, but that's Cam Davis and I don't know how to describe Tybo, but you have Tybo Rogers as well. Everybody after that, it's kind of a question mark just because they either haven't done anything or could potentially go pro/transfer, right? So Daniel Ngata hasn't done much at running back, if anything. Was a great kick returner, which makes me wonder, does Lee Marks kick over to special teams coordinator and just
that's a good question. Yeah.
So, and then do you bring in imagine if Harbaugh leaves and you bring in Mike Hart to team up with Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan again? There's a number of things that Kalen DeBoer can do to kind of spice things up even a little bit more here, while not weakening the team or just outright firing guys. Like, hey, you go over there, right? We're gonna kind of reshuffle the board around a little bit, mix the pieces up a little bit, because again, Sam Adams, Richard Newton's not going to graduate. There's so many. Even if you run this room back, the only one that's proven is Cam Davis, and he's been hurt the last 2 years at the end. So, and especially this past season, the entire season, right? So, you're looking at it thinking, well, they definitely need one transfer, if not two, because they didn't sign anybody in the 24 class. So that, not getting Jason Brown now, it's like, okay, it's fine. But now it even more so is imperative that you get probably two backs out of the portal. And you got to wait till May or March to do it, probably, because they missed on most of the guys they wanted initially.
Which is, and because I don't feel like they pushed really, really hard for a running back for that very reason, though. Yeah. Where it felt like they didn't know what the room was going to look like.
Yeah.
Where they were like, yeah, we'll go after Jaquavius Marks. Of course, he ends up going to USC. Where they were like, okay, didn't get him. Now let's just kind of be patient. Let's see what happens. Because you're right, there is another portal period that's going to open up after spring practice. So that's still something that's going to be that needs to be just monitored very closely just to see what happens there. But it still feels like there's going to be a lot of turnover on this team, a lot of change when it comes to guys transferring, guys that just might want to look for another opportunity. So it's just a matter of when are we going to see that and what's that going to look like? And the position where that's going to matter more than anything else is along the defensive line, where all four starters are leaving. That's Zion Tupuola-Fatui, that's Tuli Gasanoa, that's MJ Ale, and that's Braylon Trice. And then behind them, wouldn't be surprised if Jacob Bandis grad transfers. Fatui Tuitele put something on his Instagram story that suggested he might be a grad transfer as well. So there's a lot of room to still go out and add bodies at defensive tackle. And my question, what I'm curious about is, are we going to see grad transfers that look like Sebastian Valdez, where that's a one-year guy who looks like they can make a big impact right away? Or is it going to be a player in the mold of Isaiah Hastings, who still hasn't committed, has an offer from Washington, looks like he took visits to Missouri, Syracuse, and Cal, where it still looks like there could be a possibility there as he's not yet committed. He's a talented, high upside player who just didn't play much at Alabama. And I'm just really curious because it feels like there are going to be multiple bodies taken at the position, and it's just a matter of what are they going to look like.
Right, and I think the answer is probably a happy medium of the two, right? You're going to want to get probably another impact guy to put with Sebastian Valdez, maybe even as like a Raylan Goforth where it's a backup option, but you're still having that veteran depth because you still have Armand Parker, Javon Parker,
right?
Melenius
Davis, Anthony James, yeah.
There's some bodies there, right? And again, Anthony James probably at the bottom of that list just because he's transitioning over from edge
positions, yeah.
Right. So, but again, still a serviceable body there. But to me, I think, and especially with the way the staff builds, they think of immediate impact guys, and
right,
you're probably thinking at least a 1-and-1, right? One more veteran with 1 to 2 years of eligibility left. And almost kind of like a Jabbar Muhammad, right? Where you're getting him ideally for 1 year, but he could come back for another year, right? And then you want Isaiah Hastings, where it's like, hey, we didn't get somebody in 22, so let's go do this in 24, knowing that we have him for 2 or 3 years, right? Because that's ideally what you want to make sure that the depth is not, there's not a cliff fall off when you get to, like with Washington, you already have, Bernard and all the guys at the receiver. You have, Durfee at the edge. You have all these guys at least somewhat there, right? Noah Carter coming in at the edge versus, oh, wow, we got all this way here. We didn't even figure out the back end of that. We have so now we're losing Rome, the receivers, and we have nobody here. It's like, no, that would be coaching malpractice. That would be the previous regime. So this staff, they know, and I think Kalen already kind of knew going into the game, like, hey, we'll see how good we are. And I think that's why they didn't play as many of the rotational players up front, because they wanted to see, hey, how far off are we? And who do we need to go get? Not that they, I'm not saying they played to lose, right? I'm not saying that. But it was certainly okay, well, let's see how we hang on. Let's see how we do. Because really quickly, I'm looking at this here. I'm looking at, so Jacob Lane played 8 snaps. Bandis played 4. Basically, all the starter, nobody played more than 10 snaps if you weren't, legitimately on the trees. I mean, I'm not even seeing the Parker brothers on here. So to me, it's like, okay, that tells me last night they were going in with a 1-game, 1-off mentality, not just, Durfee doesn't even get a snap. So again, it's one of those where even when they were starting to lose that game, they weren't giving those other guys experience. And that tells me, okay, we know they'll be good in the future, but we need some impact guys. Okay, if you guys are all leaving, this is your game. You get to win it or lose it, but we're changing the house next season. And I think that's probably the right decision because, again, you don't want to run players out of your program, but you want to kind of exhaust their eligibility, give them the opportunity, give them the reps, and then if they choose to leave, so be it, right? Jacob Bannis kind of comes to mind there where it's like they could easily just cast him aside and said, hey, okay, well, if you're going to not be here in the future, we're going to give this to Armon and Javon and whoever else. I know that they found a role for him, was serviceable, and now it's just a matter of can you replace him and level up at the same time.
No, that's a great point right there. And I feel like that's a good place to wrap this up because, we don't have names yet for, other guys where it's like, okay, maybe this has got to look at, maybe that's got to look at where there's still so much fluidity there that we're probably best to just cut that off right now. And because we're going to be talking about that so much over the next couple of weeks. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're there. We're everywhere. We're updating this channel with new content every single day. So make sure you subscribe just wherever you get your podcasts. Again, make sure you like the video. Leave us a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review for your audio only. It all really helps out the channel, so we really do appreciate all your support for that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you on Friday.